I agree with that wholeheartedly. And just to buttress your point about the female anatomy, there's just something that came to mind that I'm kind of recently, I was aware of, but now I'm more conscious of, is because obviously I do some webinars and some workshops from with people, especially from like West Africa and some from East Africa. One thing that a couple of people said, and I didn't realize as much until maybe when the person said it, was that she found it quite distressing that a number of like the figures that you see, or like of the female anatomy, is of a form that doesn't look like hers, either because of the skin color, and the second is that where, for example, in cultures and countries where female genital cutting is quite prevalent, to show different types, and I'm not an advocate, I don't support female genital mutilation or female genital cutting in that, but just want to make that clear. But where a number of women have obviously have undergone this, for healthcare providers or medical practitioners or sex educators to not only be aware of it and have a language that doesn't make them feel alienated, and also maybe there's reflection of genitalia that reflects the genitalia of a woman whose maybe clitoral hood has been removed, or the clitoral glans has been removed, or even a woman who's been infibulated, because each and every one of these women still can experience sexual pleasure and orgasm.
Absolutely.
And that was something that, because I got a mold done of a vulva, one with an anatomy with, you could say, like the labial lips and clitoris. That one hasn't been genitally cut, and another one that has been infibulated, just to show, when I'm doing my workshops, also to show that in both situations that a woman can still experience sexual pleasure and orgasm, because that's also some of the belief systems, or the false belief systems, that people have heard, that women who have been cut cannot orgasm or not can experience pleasure. And one of the things that I found quite interesting is that when I was studying in Egypt, and in Egypt, genital cutting or female circumcision is quite prevalent. So much so that even a number of like the teachers and the scholars, they will speak ill of a woman who is not circumcised. And they will say that the women in like the West who are not circumcised, they've got excessive desire, not like our pure women in Egypt or Muslim women who are circumcised. And in the West, like any woman, they would just sleep with anyone because they haven't been circumcised. Wow. And then we use that rhetoric in a way to kind of like justify it, or to kind of make people feel like obviously circumcision or genital cutting is the right way to go about things. And then in the Western world, when I'm hearing obviously a lot of people speaking about whether it's female genital cutting, whether you want to call it circumcision or FGM, they will say even some mistruths, that a woman who's been circumcised cannot experience pleasure or cannot enjoy sex or cannot orgasm. And yes, there is some truth in that there are a number of women who have found it difficulty to experience pleasure, who has found it difficulty orgasm. But one of the problems when you continue with that kind of rhetoric is that women will lose hope, because maybe some women who have undergone that procedure and are finding it difficult to climax, like many women do, they might feel that they're unable to climax because of what they've heard. So that's something that also I'm very cognizant of, that it's important that know your audience, but when you're speaking about things, especially, yes, you don't want to maybe give the impression that you're encouraging like genital cutting or anything like that, but to not speak mistruths or make people feel uncomfortable that they are devoid of pleasure. And that's something that, again, I'm quite cognizant of, but careful in the sense that, especially when I'm speaking or posting things, because it's going to people that are in West Africa, East Africa, America, Europe, and people have got different ideas, especially when it comes to the female anatomy. So me always showing the typical or the usual anatomy where it looks like, and then someone who doesn't have that may feel less than.
Yes.
So that's also, again, but then when I show an anatomy of one that's been circumcised, then people may feel I'm endorsing or encouraging, and that's not what I'm doing. But it's to make people feel that those women who have been genitally cut or infibulated, that there's still a place for them, and you can still experience pleasure, still experience orgasm. So that's also something that I just thought about when you mentioned about understanding the anatomy.
Right. And you're so right, because actually that is a question. I was recently speaking on an app, and a woman had asked that she had been circumcised, and whether or not she could experience orgasm. And that's exactly the conversation that I had with her, is that absolutely she could, and that there are different erogenous zones and areas, and that just because, even if the clitoris has been removed, you and I both know that there's so much of that tissue, right? The erectile tissue that is underneath that we don't see in that area, right on the anterior surface of the vagina, right, which we know, or that they call the G spot, and now they call the erogenous zone, where women can still experience climax and still have an orgasm, right, even if that clitoris has been removed. So, and there's different types of orgasms, but absolutely those women can experience an orgasm.